Sports Scene, Hampton Road's premier interview show with Greg Bicouvaris, each Saturday from 10 a.m. to 11.
And you look at that, 4-4 at home, which is just average, 4-3-1 on the road. I mean, you're not going to win any games like that. They were not the same team after they beat the Packers, yet the Packers were a totally different team.
Interact with Sports Scene on Twitter @GregBic and listen weekly as Greg interviews distinguished guests with excellent commentary and insight. Sports Scene, Saturdays at 10 a.m. on the Lighthouse 100.1 FM. From Chesapeake, Virginia, the Lighthouse 100.1 presents Sports Scene. Sports Scene features local, regional, and nationally acclaimed guests and excellent interviews. Follow Sports Scene on Twitter @GregBic. Now here is Greg Bicouvaris.
Sports Scene presented by HamptonRoadsOnlineMall.com. Greg Bicouvaris along with Andrew. Glad you're with us for our show midweek online, Saturday on the radio on 1010 AM, 100.1 FM, and tunein.com by typing WPMH in the search bar. Tell your friends about Sports Scene. Twitter @GregBic, GregBic, and you can see the rest of my Twitter handles on GJBTV.com. Thank you to our military. Guest lineup presented by GJBTV.com. Phone line presented by Buffalo Wild Wings and Newport News. NCAA March Madness coming up. MLB on Fox right around the corner. NBA heating up, as well as all the great sports in golf and tennis. Great interviews, excellent guests, business segments, highlights, commentary, what teased me off. Thank you for listening to Sports Scene. We love our regulars, tourists who listen online and on the radio.
A tradition of excellence for over 50 years is the Aberdeen Barn Steakhouse in Virginia Beach. Start your experience off with she crab soup, an assortment of appetizers such as the fried oyster, Rockefeller, crispy calamari, just to name a few. Aberdeen Barn has the finest premium steaks, prime rib, grilled tomahawk ribeye, seafood, chicken, pasta dishes, and live music in a most pleasing atmosphere. Open daily. Visit them at 5805 Northampton Boulevard in Virginia Beach. Call 464-1580 and log on to aberdeenbarn.net.
Catch up on archived editions of Sports Scene by going to GJBTV.com and clicking the YouTube image on the homepage. Now back to Sports Scene with Greg Bicouvaris.
And welcome back to Sports Scene every Saturday from 10 to 11 right here on 1010 AM, 100.1 FM. Greg Bicouvaris along with our featured guest, Rick Kiefner, part of the Old Dominion broadcast family for decades, who went to Old Dominion. Rick, good to see you again.
Nice being with you.
Very good, Rick. Let's get right to it. We're in March Madness right now, a fun time of the year for college basketball. Give us your take. We'll start off with the women's first, ladies first. Your thoughts. The women have done very well this year.
Very well. Nicki McCray has done a great job in just a couple of years. She's a good recruiter, and she's added a lot of excitement to the women's program for Old Dominion University. And I think obviously they've had a good year so far, and I think they're going to do well and be considered for the NCAA tournament.
Very good. And, of course, it's taken some time to get over Karen Barefoot, and before Barefoot, there was Wendy Larry. So there was a big kind of cliff of Old Dominion women's basketball going back to the days, of Marianne Stanley as well.
I've been to 2 games so far this year. The last game was the Rice game. Rice University, Old Dominion University was for first place. Rice was in first place. Old Dominion was in second place. And the first thing I thought of after the game was over was this kind of reminded me of the Marianne Stanley days and the early days of Wendy Larry. Just a lot of excitement. They're bringing back fans to Old Dominion women's basketball program. And Nikki has done all the right things in the short time she's been there.
Very good. And, of course, switching gears to men's basketball, Jeff Jones made the NCAA tournament with his Old Dominion team last year. It seems like the only way, realistically, they're going to do it again this year, which they could, is that they win the tournament.
They have to. With their record now, it's a losing record. They have to win the tournament. And piggybacking on that, I think basically there's only going to be one team from Conference USA that will be in the big dance.
Yeah, and that's kind of sad because that's how it was kind of back in the day with the Colonial. Colonial did have it a couple times where they made, a few exceptions to that.
Yeah, VCU and Old Dominion in a couple of years.
Right.
George Mason and maybe VCU or Old Dominion, et cetera. So, Richmond when they were in the CAA, et cetera. So the CAA has had 2 teams occasionally in the big dance.
Yeah, but the thing is that George Mason and VCU both made the Final Four, and I don't see any Conference USA team doing that any anytime soon. But, I want to be positive. This could be the year Old Dominion gets lucky like Virginia did back in the 70s and wins the whole tournament.
Absolutely. There have been other teams that have had losing records or 500 records that have entered the big dance. If that happens, obviously the seeding would not be very good. They would probably be 15th or 16th seeding, probably 16th seeding. So it depends. It's a new season once the postseason starts. So when they get in the conference tournament, it's Jeff's got to remind his kids, hey, it's a new season. Forget the rest of the season and let's go from here.
Very good. Talking to Rick Kiefner, part of the Old Dominion broadcast family. Tell the fans, I know you're still part of the football pregame, but tell us what you're doing now.
Well, obviously, I host the Hour pregame show for Old Dominion University's football program. But for basketball, I counted up. It was 45 years that I was doing either the color or the play-by-play occasionally when some of the other guys had some other assignments. So I've been very close to Old Dominion University and their program. I'm also on the executive committee for the foundation. So Old Dominion, I bleed blue and white.
Yes, you do. And, of course, I like to see recently they've kind of gone back to some of their uniforms back when Paul Webb was coaching.
Exactly. The other day, they had the blue, and it was kind of nice. Gives you some fond memories of what happened with with Sonny Allen and Paul Webb and Blaine Taylor and Jeff Capel, et cetera. So a lot of Old Dominion University for a relatively a new program when they wound up getting into Division I, and even when they started with Sonny Allen, they really have had a lot of success with their men's basketball program. Obviously, with the women's basketball program.
Very good. Talking to Rick Kiefner, and of course, will they stay? Those uniforms stay next year, you think, or just kind of fads?
I think it's just kind of fads, and depending on what the coach, the players want, it goes maybe just depends on what they're thinking about.
Very good. Of course, Old Dominion is always trying to evolve, and they've been consistent with Jones, I got to admit. But one thing I want to talk about is the crowds and the attendance. I think it's affecting all sporting events, is that the younger generation in their 20s, and that's what attends college games, a lot of them are affected by their phone. If it's not right now, they don't have the patience to stay for 2 or 3 hours, especially a football game. You've seen grown adults, Rick, and let's be real here, during Bobby's era, leaving at halftime during the football games. They don't have the patience to stay even when they're winning, to stay for a whole 4-quarter game. Does that concern you, as most of the people that go to the basketball games are senior citizens?
Yes and no. I mean, it's just that's happening all over the country. I saw the other day where Wisconsin, that has 71,000 plus seats for football, when they've had so-called cupcake games, have had an attendance that's been 225,000 less. There's just so many choices now for people, for fans, etc. But when Old Dominion was winning and was in the CAA as far as the football program is concerned, it just seemed like there was 3 parts of the football game. There was the tailgating in the beginning, the first half, and the second half. And the tailgating obviously was packed all the time. And then the first half, and depending if it's like 28-3, etc., Old Dominion winning or Old Dominion losing, a lot of people are probably going to go home and catch the 4 o'clock game if it was an afternoon game and see what's going on there. Obviously, weather has a lot to do with it. But in the last few years with Old Dominion University football, everybody loves the winter. Winter tie, they all love it. But after the bowl game that Old Dominion got several years ago, they went 4-8. And then 5-7, then 4-8, and then last year 1-11. So obviously the interest decreased every year. I think it's going to perk up though next year with the new football coach.
What about Friday night games?
I'm really excited about the opening game for Old Dominion. Not only is it Wake Forest, not only is it an ACC team, not only is it a so-called Big Five school conference team, but it's going to be on a Friday night before, and it's on the Labor Day weekend, and I think it's going to be perfect. I'm looking forward to a sellout crowd, and with a new coach, and obviously still a new stadium, Ballard Stadium. I'm really looking forward to that night.
Now, you always catch these teams early for upsets. We We've seen back in the day Appalachian State beat Michigan early in the season. If there was ever a time now to do it early in the season for Old Dominion to get that upset, it would be now. But they're going to be a very young team.
They're going to be a very young team. You got new coaches. You're going to have new players. It is a young team. It's a young situation. It's new football systems. And as far as Wake Forest is concerned, it was kind of interesting the other night. I had heard talking with someone that was close to the Wake Forest program that their quarterback left and is going to Georgia. But the people around Wake Forest say, hey, no problem, because the guy they got in now is even better than the guy that's leaving to go into Georgia. So, Wake Forest has a good football program now. They're very competitive. They've been very successful the last few years. And, obviously it's going to be David versus Goliath in that game.
Yep, it'll be an event. I think anytime Old Dominion plays an ACC team in football, it's an event. It's more than just a game. Now, the dilemma will be it's Labor Day weekend. People still want to go to the beach. It's Friday night. We know the traffic is. You're going to have to get there early.
I agree, but I think it's going to be better having it on a Friday night than it is Saturday, because it let you have a 3-day weekend, et cetera. So, and plus the fact, like I said, it's an ACC school. It's the debut of the new football coach and coaching staff for Old Dominion University. So, I expect it to be rocking and rolling on Hampton Boulevard.
All right, we'll come back with our part 2 of our interview with Rick Kiefner. We've had him on Sports Highlights. Sports Scene will continue after these messages. Mark your calendar for May 28th to May 31st as Saints Constantine and Helen Greek Orthodox Church in Newport News presents the Newport News Greek Festival. Eat, drink, and celebrate authentic Greek culture on the peninsula. Located at 60 Traverse Road, off exit 258B on Route 17 in Newport News. Celebrating a taste of Greece in Newport News. For more, log on to newportnewsgreekfestival.org.
A tradition of excellence for over 50 years is the Aberdeen Barn Steakhouse in Virginia Beach. Start your experience off with she crab soup, an assortment of appetizers such as the fried oyster, Rockefeller, crispy calamari, just to name a few. Aberdeen Barn is the finest premium steaks, prime rib, grilled tomahawk ribeye, seafood, chicken, pasta dishes, and live music in a most pleasing atmosphere. Open daily. Visit them at 5805 Northampton Boulevard in Virginia Beach. Call 464-1580 and log on to aberdeenbarn.net.
All right, welcome back to Sports Scene as well. I want to thank Yummy Sushi on Great Neck Road and Sakura in Chesapeake for great, delicious food as well, 24/7, open 7 days a week. Greg Bicouvaris along with Rick Kiefner. For more, go to gjbtv.com. Click the YouTube link for archive shows, commercials, and so forth as well. Rick, well, we're in March Madness. We mentioned Old Dominion already, women and men's, but on a national scene, Virginia won it last year. It's wide open this year.
Roll the dice. I mean, I can't remember another year, Greg, where basically you've got a dozen teams that can win. Last year, obviously, the championship game between UVA and Texas Tech, Auburn was in there and lost to UVA in a controversial call, et cetera. But this year, just roll the dice. No one, I think, has a good idea who could be the one or two or maybe third team that you'd pick for your March Madness.
Yeah, it could be anybody, really. And, I'm a big Syracuse fan. I love the zone and so forth. I mean, they could still win the ACC tournament, but even the ACC tournament's wide open, too, because North Carolina's down, but they're playing better lately.
They are.
And then you see Duke losing to teams like Wake Forest. The ACC tournament, to me, is wide open.
And they lost, 22 points a couple weeks ago to NC State and won against NC State the other night, at home in Durham. But, they're a young team, freshmen, a lot of freshmen, et cetera, not the same players that they had last year. And, last year they didn't go to the Final Four. So it is wide open. It's going to be interesting to see who comes out of the ACC. As you mentioned earlier, Virginia is playing as well as anybody. And, they're a hard matchup. They frustrate a lot of teams because a lot of teams like to run and gun, et cetera. And, you don't get that many possessions when you play against UVA.
Right, they're a counterpuncher team. I mean, they'll knock the wind out of you. It's like playing chess and checkers at the same time. I mean, they had Duke confused recently here, on a national TV stage. But I think when you talk about teams like Carolina and Syracuse and Virginia, especially Carolina and Syracuse, they're dark horses. Georgia Tech's out of the ACC tournament now because of violations, which I think is a shame.
And you look at Clemson. Clemson has beaten Louisville, they've beaten Duke, and they've beaten Florida State. And no one would think that would have happened, a month ago.
It's wide open. And, of course, the Clemson coach used to coach UNC Wilmington.
Absolutely.
Back in the CAA days as well. So
it was very successful.
Right. And then you talk about the national scene. The Big Ten's doing very well. Louisville's doing well. I still think Florida State can be vulnerable.
Yeah, they might have the best athletes on the floor at any given time, I saw them play last year, and I looked and wow, what looked like a lineup that came out of the NBA. But I'm not a big fan of Florida State. I think they'll probably wind up in the maybe the Final 16 or the Grade 8, but I wouldn't pick them for Final Four.
Yeah, the teams that are struggling in the ACC are Boston College and Miami, and of course you're always talking about that. I saw Georgetown recently, and I got to admit, they really haven't evolved much under Patrick Ewing. That hasn't changed a lot, hasn't affected attendance that much. I mean, he played last in 1985 for Georgetown. Yes, he was a great star, but their record hasn't shown it.
And they're a good team. They're in a conference that's got a lot of good basketball teams. But obviously, I don't think they're going to be a favorite to advance that far if they get into the big dance.
And then you saw recently Rutgers beating Maryland in basketball.
Yeah,
I mean, anything can happen.
Maryland's got some great players. They've got a very good coach, and they were leading. At one time, they were leading the Big Ten, and they will be in the big dance, and maybe gets seeded second or third, etc. That's another thing that you look at that Big Ten. It's always a physical conference. I always think about Michigan State, and I think about Michigan, and obviously you've got Maryland, etc. They're very physical, and especially Michigan State. I always like them in the NCAA tournament because they've experienced players. They've got a great coach, and it just seems like he's there every year.
They're geared toward the tournament. I mean, they've got great players. They did very well last year. And, of course, I would never want to play Izzo in the NCAA tournament.
He is a great coach, and he's done well. I believe last year I think they beat Duke in advance, et cetera. He is just a wonderful coach, and he's there every year at the big dance.
Yeah. Back to Maryland, though, they've done well during the regular season, but they need to involve in the postseason. It's all about the postseason. That's all you're going to remember. People don't remember much about Old Dominion's schedule last year, but they remember they made the NCAA tournament.
Absolutely. Wound up playing Purdue and
played them well.
And they played them well, lost by 13 points. And then the next day, or 2 days later, Purdue wound up playing Villanova and just wiped them out. They were up by 30 points at one time. But it's there's 3 seasons. I think I remember Paul Webb telling me there's 3 seasons. There's your non-conference schedule, then your conference schedule, and then there's the postseason. So right now, Old Dominion University and all the other teams are in the conference season. It's ending up, and in most cases, it's all going to be tournament, postseason conference tournament. But then after that, the successful teams will go on to the 3rd season, which is the NCAA Big Dance.
Yeah, talking to Rick Kiefner, Greg Bicouvaris, glad you're with us. Hope you also enjoyed the 300th edition of Sports Highlights and Newport News as well. Rick was a part of that way back as well. For more, go to nnpstv.com. But again, it comes down to postseason play. You gear up for postseason play, and this is what you're going to be remembered by. There are other tournaments out there like the NIT and some other tier tournaments, but Old Dominion, really, it's only one and done. NCAA, or that's it.
Based on their record, if they don't win the NCAA, I don't think they would be invited to the NIT, obviously. And, I don't think, like in last year, they had an opportunity, or a couple of years ago, they had an opportunity to play in one of the lesser-named tournaments, and they declined it.
Yeah, and look up the Red Open 64. William Mary's never been to the NCAA tournament.
Pulling for William Mary. Yeah. I'd love to see the Tribe do this year.
Right. The AD, she wiped out Laycock before his 40th year, wiped out the basketball coach, and he wanted to get some fruits of the labor here. But you got to wonder if William Mary doesn't win it this year, and again, you essentially have to win 3 games on the road. It's going to be difficult for them.
They're seated 2nd behind Hofstra. and they're going to have to, like I said, have to win 3 games. And I'm pulling for them. Hope they do it. Obviously, I think it's what Citadel, Army, William and Mary, and like St. Francis said are the only teams that have not been into the NCAA. But boy, they've got some talent. They played Old Dominion. I saw that game earlier, and they really have some good players. They're smart players, obviously. But this is the year for the Tribe if it's going to be done.
Yeah, Old Dominion has always had better athletes than Wayne Mary, but Wayne Mary has beaten Old Dominion in the past.
Oh yeah,
few and far between.
I think in the last few years, I think they've won like 5 out of the last 7 games, or 4 out of the last 6. So William Mary's had the upper hand, and they cruised by the Monarchs earlier in the year up in Williamsburg.
Talking to Rick Kiefner, absolutely. But again, it comes down to the tournament as well. What will happen with teams like Richmond and VCU and William and Mary? And I think Richmond right now is kind of on the bubble.
Richmond's on a bubble, and VCU definitely is on a bubble. VCU lost like 5 games in a row. I think for them to advance to the NCAA, they're going to have to tournament. They're going to have to either get into the finals of the conference, or they're not going to be able to do it.
Couple quick nuggets to make it quick, Rick. When hindsight, would it have been better for Old Dominion to do what Richmond did? Atlantic 10 basketball, CAA football?
Greg, I get that question all the time. And basically, I think you have to go back a few years. And when this was all happening, Texas, the University of Texas, was considering going into the Pac-10. That's how crazy it was. And Old Dominion had an offer to go into Conference USA. Well, Conference USA at the time had teams like SMU. They had teams like Tulane, Central Florida, South Florida. They had Memphis in basketball, which was one of the top 10 teams every year. The Navy with for football, etc. They had an opportunity. And think about this now, money wise, and sometimes it always depends on money. My understanding was Old Dominion got the second highest amount of money from the CAA due to postseason tournaments, etc. Second only to VCU. VCU had gone into the Final Four and everything like that, and they got roughly $250,000. All right, if they were going to go Conference USA, they knew the expenses were going to be higher, etc., traveling and everything like that, plus football. My understanding was they got $2.5 million that first year off of TV money, et cetera, and everything. But everything changed. And then after they joined, East Carolina left. You had SMU leaving. You had the teams from Florida leaving, Memphis leaving, et cetera, Tulsa leaving, and so the geography of the conference changed drastically. And our closest opponent was Marshall University. So things changed. At that time, I think it was a good decision. And also at that time, we knew that VCU was leaving. We knew that Richmond had left, and also George Mason was leaving. So some of those rivals basically weren't there anymore for Old Dominion University.
Yeah, but VCU and George Mason are basketball schools, not football. And that was the big thing.
Yeah.
Football. Final few moments, Rick. With Rick Kiefner, Greg Bicouvaris, glad you're with us, that the Redskins have a new coach in Rivera, and nobody, whether it's Joe Gibbs, Rivera himself, the past regime of the Redskins, Gruden, as well, nobody's endorsed this kid Haskins. And I'm going to tell you, for attending a lot of games and working for Fox at these games, your demeanor, your behavior, your attitude, how you're presenting yourself on the field for warm-ups, and I think Rivera's seeing some of that. And
taking a selfie when we should be in the play.
He's seeing an immature kid.
Absolutely. That's been on him. And
yes,
it's going to be interesting. I tell you what's going to happen. We're going to find out during draft day who is in control of the Redskins. Is it still going to be Dan Snyder, or is it going to be the new football coach Ron Rivera? I really respect Rivera, and depending on who they choose. If they choose the kid from Ohio State, Chase, then basically what is happening is I think that's going to be Dan Snyder. If they get the quarterback, Tua, from Alabama, then to me that's a choice by Ron Rivera, that he says, hey, and I think right now, and I think a lot of people think the same thing, that Tua is a much better quarterback right now, despite the hip injury, and we'll have to see how that pans out, over Haskins. Haskins doesn't have the experience that he did. He had 1 year in college football. He had 3 years for Tua, and obviously, he's got a strong arm, speaking of Haskins, but he's not as mobile as. And then again, but the main thing is basically as far as the hip concern. I think that's going to be okay. The other thing is if they decide to draft and change places with Miami, and all of a sudden maybe get a couple. I mean, that's something you got to consider. So there's some hard decisions that the Redskins are going to have to make, but I think they're in the driver's seat as far as picking out who they want.
The Raiders had a quarterback named Jamarcus Russell who played for LSU. Yeah. I'm sorry, but Haskins kind of reminds me of him, a big arm, not much else. And I'll say this for being an Ohio State fan, Cardell Jones, who plays for the Defenders of the XFL, in my opinion, right in D.C., is better than Haskins right now. I'm not sold on Haskins. Obviously, Joe Gibson's not sold on Haskins. He's a very immature kid. He needs a lot of time. But the problem is, Dan Snyder and Rivera, they don't want to wait for him to mature. He's an immature adult who needs to grow up fast.
Absolutely. And like I said, he was taking a selfie when he should have been, on the playing field, and very immature. He's 20, 21 years old now. And then I've heard, he just doesn't spend a lot of extra time in the locker room as far as or the film room trying to find out what's going on. So, I think maybe if you can get Tua as number 2, it's going to be that choice, or trading back so that you get 2 or 3, because they need a lot of help in a lot of areas to do that. I mean, there's some decisions to make, and then basically you trade Haskins. I don't know. I mean, maybe someone like the Las Vegas Raiders might want him, et cetera, and take a chance on him. Gruden always loves quarterbacks, et cetera. But right now he's the 4th best quarterback in that division behind Dallas, New York, and Philadelphia.
How much attention have you paid to the XFL?
Not that much. I've watched a couple minutes on the TV, switching back and forth depending on whether there's a good basketball game. I hope they do well. I think but it's going to be interesting. They got a lot of money behind them this year, and that's the main difference. In the previous years, the people that were back in those leagues just didn't have the money.
They're competing against March Madness too. That's not going to be easy. And the NBA, and golf, and tennis, and baseball.
Augusta, the Masters.
Yeah, exactly.
Hello, friends.
Yes, that's it. Rick, finally, your thoughts. Dusty Baker trying to clean up the mess with the Astros. The Nationals under the radar without Rendon.
Yeah, it's going to be a situation where they are going to have to work on this, not only for opening day, but opening month, opening quarter, et cetera. It's going to be ongoing situation, and I think what's going to happen is you're going to see more and more of the players that were not involved with Houston, but players that maybe like Aaron Judge. A lot of people said he lost the MVP because of what happened, et cetera. I think you're going to see a lot of baseball players kind of revolt and say, well, hey, we need more punishment.
Rick, all the best to your insurance business and Old Dominion, and we'll talk to you down the road.
Looking forward to it. Thanks.
All right, Rick Kiefner from Old Dominion. Sports Scene will continue after these messages. Mark your calendar for May 28th to May 31st as Saints Constantine and Helen Greek Orthodox Church in Newport News presents the Newport News Greek Festival. Eat, drink, and celebrate authentic Greek culture on the peninsula. Located at 60 Traverse Road, off exit 258B on Route 17 in Newport News. Celebrating a taste of Greece in Newport News. For more, log on to newportnewsgreekfestival.org.
A tradition of excellence for over 50 years is the Aberdeen Barn Steakhouse in Virginia Beach. Start your experience off with she crab soup, an assortment of appetizers such as the fried oyster, Rockefeller, crispy calamari, just to name a few. Aberdeen Barn has the finest premium steaks, prime rib, grilled tomahawk ribeye, seafood, chicken, pasta dishes, and live music in a most pleasing atmosphere. Open daily. Visit them at 5805 Northampton Boulevard in Virginia Beach. Call 464-1580 and log on to aberdeenbarn.net.
You are listening to Sports Scene with Greg Bicouvaris. Now, back to Greg. It's now time for Greg's Highlights, presented by HamptonRoadsOnlineMall.com.
I want to thank our good friends at Panera. Excellent soup, sandwiches, salads, bagels, bread, smoothies, breakfast sandwiches. Open 7 days a week, early morning for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Excellent cookies, catering. PaneraBread.com. Food as it should be. Located right there at 1397 Fordham Drive in Virginia Beach. Give them a call at 361-2425 for great food. today. Highlights, gjbtv.com, hrsmhof.com with the big ceremony coming up in May, HamptonRoadsOnlineMall.com. Go to gjbtv.com, click the YouTube link for archive shows. Our question of the day presented by Buffalo Wild Wings and Newport News to Andrew. Andrew, when you go out to eat in general with the family, do you order all-inclusive, meaning appetizers, entrees, desserts, beverages, or for the most part, are you guys frugal?
Yeah, I think we would make frugal people uncomfortable, honestly. My wife and I, that's one area where we can see just an opportunity to save a whole lot of money. My dad was in the restaurant business. I know how much markup there is and all that kind of stuff. The tax on restaurant food doesn't help either. So, yeah, we keep it real simple when we do go out. Grab an entree, and then we'll do dessert or a snack at home or whatever. But, yeah, super, super frugal for sure.
You start getting drinks, appetizers, desserts, your bill is going to go way up.
Oh, it skyrockets, yep.
And, of course, the expression on the waiters and waitresses when you don't order a drink or an appetizer or dessert totally is different.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's like telling a car salesperson that, you're not financing the vehicle or whatever. I mean, they just miss out on so much from you doing that and, helps you out. But I try to leave a little extra for the service staff because I know that does make a big deal. And so hopefully that balances out their evening a little bit.
Yeah, when you see that expression when they just order water, it's unbelievable. Buffalo Wild Wings, lunch, dinner, appetizers, great food, traditional boneless wing, excellent brand new app, sandwiches, watch March Madness on TV, NBA postseason on TV, all the great games, golf and tennis, right there next to Patrick Henry Mall and Newport News at 12150 Jefferson Avenue. Open 7 days a week for lunch and dinner and late night. Good food, good times at Buffalo Wild Wings in Newport News. Mark your calendar for May 28th to May 31st as Saints Constantine and Helen Greek Orthodox Church in Newport News presents the Newport News Greek Festival. Eat, drink, and celebrate authentic Greek culture on the peninsula. Located at 60 Traverse Road, off exit 258B on Route 17 in Newport News. Celebrating a taste of Greece in Newport News. For more, log on to newportnewsgreekfestival.org.
A tradition of excellence for over 50 years is the Aberdeen Barn Steakhouse in Virginia Beach. Start your experience off with she crab soup, an assortment of appetizers such as the fried oyster, Rockefeller, crispy calamari, just to name a few. Aberdeen Barn is the finest premium steaks, prime rib, grilled tomahawk ribeye, seafood, chicken, pasta dishes, and live music in a most pleasing atmosphere. Open daily. Visit them at 5805 Northampton Boulevard in Virginia Beach. Call 464-1580 and log on to aberdeenbarn.net.
And welcome back to Sports Scene right here on WPMH, AM 1010, 100.1 FM, every Saturday from 10 to 11. Greg Bicouvaris, glad you're with us. Always archived on YouTube and Twitter and social media. Pleasure to talk to our monthly featured guest, George McClain from The Marksman in Newport News. George, how are you?
Doing very well, Greg. How about yourself?
Very good, very good. I guess there's always some type of national story when you and I talk about, even though it might not really involve guns, but it does involve fear, and that's health-related with this coronavirus. Sometimes people are even getting, guns for that, just to learn more about it and protect themselves and so forth. Does health ever become relevant as far as fear and gun safety? I've never seen anything quite like this to hit home in the United States.
No, I think a lot of people are, I don't know, it becomes political even though it shouldn't be, and they start at that point, everything gets thrown into the basket. This is a health emergency. It's worldwide. It needs to be addressed. I see no reason that guns or politics or anything else needs to be brought into that picture. Those who are, to be honest with you, I haven't spoken to any of them. I couldn't even guess what their mental motivation is to do that. That they fear that they're less safe because of a virus any more than a flu epidemic would cause someone to go out and purchase a gun. You're not going to go out and shoot germs. You're not going to protect yourself, with that from the virus. And I kind of throw that into the same basket, even though this coronavirus seems to be a lot worse than the flu. ratio, the number of cases and the number of deaths involved. Where flu, yes, people die of flu, but the majority of them do not. That does not seem to be the case with this coronavirus. But as how it relates to firearms, I see no connection.
Talking to George McClain from the Marksman Saturday morning from 10 to 11. And George, last night, and I'm not going to endorse any name, of course, except for yours, the Marksman and Newport News, for all your gun safety and information and classes. But I was in Seaford last night, way out in Seaford, and near Yorktown, for those not familiar with the name Seaford. It was late in the evening, and I started hearing gunshots, and my friend told me that was from a gun club. Please tell the audience what exactly is a gun club, and do they exist all around the country?
Well, I guess it depends on what your definition of all around, but yes, there are several. It could be, I'm not going to mention names either, because I live in that particular area that you're speaking of.
Sure.
And, so these are clubs that may have, set up a shooting range. These are private. These are not public. These are private, clubs where they will, I don't want to say sell memberships, but there's a cost involved to become a member, and there's only so many members typically that are allowed in. And I guess if you would ask, am I opposed to that? No. Why? Because it's another venue to promote gun safety and training, and that's what we've always been about at the Marksman. Is number one, safety, but number two, how do you get that safety, is that you receive reliable professional training properly, to where you learn how to properly function a firearm. You learn maybe what we teach, a lot of the legal aspects. That's in our concealment course. Our goal there is to keep you out of trouble. And how we keep you out of trouble is to educate you on what the current law is, which obviously is getting ready to change come July 1 of this year. So everyone needs to be, up and at it, ready for that, whatever the final recipe for that is as it comes across the governor's desk. But the gun clubs, as long as they're in conformance with the law, that these are not, groups that are I'll call them rabble rousers that want to go out and change everything by force that they disagree with, and there are a few of those around. There's no getting around that. But for the most part, not just for the most part, for the vast majority, these gun clubs are just neighborhood guys that want to get together, have a safe place to shoot. And a lot of them could be a gun club without a place to shoot, where they just get together and compare notes, and they do talk about safety, and they talk about law changes, and what you should be wearing if hunting, or where is it if you don't have a place to shoot, where is a good place to shoot? Those kind of recommendations. So I see a lot of good from that. So there's a small potential, very small potential, for some bad groups, but you just don't see many of those.
Yeah, but one thing, they still have to follow the rules and regulations, like you said. I mean, you're a sanctioned facility at the Marksman and Newport News, and of course, anytime you're dealing with the firearm, there comes, a time that you have to always be proactive in safety and be, definitely cognizant of your surroundings, especially, around you. And I just wonder how safe it is compared to a facility like yourself that's got instructors there all the time. Is it chaperoned? Is it supervised? I mean, just, you mentioned private, and that kind of like, you wonder what types of regulations or protocol they go through.
Well, having not set one up, I can kind of educated deductions here. They do have to meet certain guidelines. The county is not going to let someone set up in any kind of a outdoor range like that without proper permits. So that has to be done. And of course, once that is established, it's kind of like putting in an airport, and then all of a sudden, all the way around the airport starts housing projects, and then now you've got people complaining of airport noise. Same thing with the gun clubs. This was a very sparsely populated area not too many years ago. And, so now it's growing leaps and bounds, and new housing construction is going up, and people are moving in, and they're concerned about the shooting, even though the shooting was here first. Okay, it's a proper concern. You want to make sure everyone is safe, that you're shooting in the proper direction, that you're shooting into a proper bunker, and that is I know that from people who have been there. Can I tell you who the regulating authority is outside of the county itself? No, I can't. So private does. Private as far as members. Private does not keep out law enforcement. It does not keep out code compliance folks. They will still have a right to go in and inspect.
Right. Talking to George McClain from the Marksman, but one thing about the Marksman and your indoor academy is that you don't hear it necessarily on Warwick Boulevard and Jefferson Avenue. I was way far away at a house last night, and at first I thought it was fireworks, and I asked my friend what it was because I've never been out at that hour in Seaford hearing it before. So moving quite along, tell us as far as Military Mondays and First Responder Fridays, how's that going?
Going very well. It's been a strong program for us since its inception a few years ago. So we invite, all of our military, folks, whether you remember or not. This benefit is for you. It's deeply discounted rates. And first responders, Friday, same thing. So come out and relieve a little stress. Practice a little bit. Stay in touch with that fireman.
Phone number is 872-4130, 872-4130. Please go and like the Facebook page of the Marksman in Newport News. Google the Marksman in Newport News as well. Open 7 days a week. And how about as far as the staff is concerned? Everybody all buttoned up and ready for the spring here? Yeah,
we're getting geared up. Get ready for looks like the weather has broken. So waiting for the warmer days. And that'll go great up until probably about May. Things then start slacking off, getting ready for school vacation and stuff. Although I guess some of that will be changing as York County schools kind of got messed up with that electrical fire that they had a few months ago. So I don't know that has been finalized as to what they're going to do, but that may change that a little bit. So and those kind of things do affect our business because we can typically tell when there's a rush, folks going out on vacation, and spending time with the kids once you get out of the school versus coming in and seeing us. So that's our typical business cycle throughout the year, and it kind of revolves around that.
Yeah, the method and the main theme you've always told us and stressed is, of course, be surrounding of your areas, knowing your areas very well, 2 eyes in front, 2 eyes in the back, because you never know what to expect, whether you're on traffic, whether in a big box store, parking lot, or wherever you might be. You really have to have 2 eyes in front, 2 eyes in the back, kind of like my grandma used to say when I was a kid as well, because you never know what you're walking into, George, whether you're walking into a public building, a private event. You just never know what you're walking into, and like you've always said, be prepared.
Well, that's right, especially in today's environment. And the only way you can keep 2 eyes in front and 2 eyes in the back is what? Keep your head on a swivel. You got to swing around every once in a while. Be cognizant of your surroundings, and that's using all of your senses. So if you're front, get your hearing focused in on what's going on maybe behind you, that you start listening for things that purposefully that you would normally try to pull out of a mirage of sounds, and something doesn't sound right. You need to now put your eyes on it and see what's going on. But it's always better to be prepared and never need the tools or the senses or whatever you're using to prepare against. It's always better to have that and never need it than the other way around. We wish that you had done something a little different after the fact. Monday morning quarterbacking, we call it. That doesn't fix anything. It teaches. It may allow us to learn for the next time. But sometimes these next times only happen once, and they end in a fatal outcome, or damage is already done, and that damage is hard to repair.
Right.
So being prepared has always got to be at the top.
Absolutely, because like you said, when you walk into somewhere and you don't feel right, sometimes your intuition and your gut feeling, George, is correct, and sometimes it's better just to leave before any drama could happen.
Absolutely. I agree with that 100%.
On a lighter note, I know you guys post a lot on Facebook, and of course Facebook is great because you can give constant updates about weather, about closings, and about so forth, specials that you have at the Marksman. But I read a really interesting thing last night on Facebook where cars left in the Hilton Village area of Newport News, some of them were being affected by their wiring inside because rats had actually gotten inside and chewed the wiring. Now, of course, if you see a rodent or you see an animal on your property that doesn't look like a fox, you hear about these rabid foxes that come in, and we've talked about wild stray pets before. Obviously, you don't want to just shoot a dog or a cat, but something like that's affecting your property. I've never heard of that before, but obviously it happened because it happened here recently.
Well, it does, and I have heard of rats just devastating your wiring in vehicles. But if you've got some issue like that with a wild animal, animal control is who I would call, and all the localities, Hampton, Newport News, York County, Gloucester, all those have units that have people trained in that. So again, instead of just going out and start shooting your yard up with whatever that you think may be out there, the first call would be for an animal control department. If you don't know that, call the non-emergency law enforcement number in your area. Ask them who they have on standby for animal control, and go that route.
All right, George, thank you. Go ahead and leave us the note. We're in spring here. We're in March. And, of course, lots going on at the Marksman and Newport News. And I'm always impressed with all the questions people are asking when I go by there. People are always trying to learn. There's never enough information about gun safety.
No, it's a constant thing. We keep our signs up around the building. Says the guns are like parachutes. In that if you ever need one and don't have one, you'll probably never need one again. And so that's got a little comical connotation to it, but in all seriousness, it's very truthful. So just be prepared. If you're the firearm carrying type and you want to do that, make sure you're legal. Get your proper training. Get your proper permits. We can help you do that. Stop in and say hi. See us.
Phone number is 872-4130. Like the Marksman on Facebook. George, all the best. Have a great rest of the month, and we look forward to talking to you in April.
Okay, Greg, you take care. Be safe.
Thank you, George. George McClain right there from the Marksman. We'll be back after these messages.
Pointing the way in Hampton Roads. W261DI 100.1 FM Norfolk. AM 1010 WPMH Portsmouth. The Lighthouse. Mold. Trash. Rodents. Snakeskin. Even deceased animals. No, this isn't a Halloween shopping list. It's what might be under your house, in your crawl space. Schedule a free crawl space inspection with the Crawl Space Company and find out what's in your crawl space. Call 757-394-3494 to schedule your free inspection or visit thecrawlspacecompany.net. So, do you know what's in your crawl space?
Thank you, too, for your great show, because it really makes people think about topics that are important. I listen and I love, and I've called in before, too. I just really appreciate your program. I also think that it's good to have debates because it lets us all dig a little deeper. Hey, what does God's Word say about that? So I appreciate your show. I think it's great, and I think we all should be digging deeper into the Word of God and seeking God as to what He's called us to do.
Be sure to tune into Picking Up the Habit every Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. here on the Lighthouse 100.1 FM.
Mark your calendar for May 28th to May 31st as Saints Constantine and Helen Greek Orthodox Church in Newport News presents the Newport News Greek Festival. Eat, drink, and celebrate authentic Greek culture on the peninsula. Located at 60 Traverse Road, off exit 258B on Route 17 in Newport News. Celebrating a taste of Greece in Newport News. For more, log on to newportnewsgreekfestival.org.
And now get back to basics with Ray Gessner here on The Lighthouse. Hi, I'm Ray Gessner with the Step in Time Chimney Sweeps. There's a whole bunch of us out there who are very lucky and very happy to be saved. And there are some right now who are listening to this conversation and they're not saved. And there's a verse in the Bible, it talks about this widow lady who just keeps knocking on a door, telling a king, please give me justice, give me justice, give me justice. And that was an unjust king, and eventually he gave her justice. It says that if you imagine what an unjust king would do, imagine what a just king would do. So what that really means is this. Just keep asking God over and over and over again, come into my life, I love you, please. Just come into my life. I want to be part of your world. But just keep knocking on that door. Trust me, he will be there. I'm Ray Gessner with the Step in Time Chimney Sweeps. God bless you, and you can find me at chimneysweep.com.
Half of all pregnancies in the U.S. are unplanned, and 43% of those pregnancies end in abortion. CareNet Peninsula is a nonprofit on a mission to bring help and hope in Christ to women facing pregnancy decisions. We're completely community funded. Because of faithful partners, our medical clinic provides free pregnancy tests, ultrasounds, and many other services. This support saves lives of hundreds of preborn babies a year and changes families. Will you help us? Donate or find out more at cnpeninsula.org. That's cnpeninsula.org.
What tees you off? Presented by HamptonRoadsOnlineMall.com.
And one thing, our good friends at CP Shuckers, local tradition on Shore Drive, Pacific Avenue. Delicious food, great appetizers like steak bites, excellent specials, sandwiches, burgers, all the games on TV. Go by and see Matt, Mark, and Chef Leon. Consistent good food at CP Shuckers. Like them on Facebook. All right, what tees me off, Andrew? Vehicles that are propped up, way up high, big type rims, big tires that kind of make a lot of noise without even making noise.
Oh, yeah, it's a distraction. I don't think it's particularly safe for the people inside the vehicle, but I also kind of wonder, too, just how safe the rest of us are. How well can they see us from up there? We're just trying to get to work and school and wherever else. I mean, do you have to turn it into a monster truck rally or whatever else?
You're exactly right, because you can imagine how the passengers, especially kids in the back seat, feel. It's still a vehicle.
Yeah, absolutely. It's utilitarian. If you want to have fun in a vehicle, go to a racetrack. There are ways to do that without, turning the road into an unsafe environment.
It's a huge distraction. All right, judges who needle you as you walk out the door to get you to say something. Going to court recently, they'll say, all right, make sure next time you don't speed. And they're trying to riddle you and needle you as you walk out so you'll say something and possibly get a bigger fine.
I fortunately haven't been in that position, but I have had interactions with judges that were both positive and negative. They're people too, and that's why we just got to be careful not to give any one segment of our population too much power, because judges have bad days too. Judges can be biased sometimes, and unfortunately, I just hope the dignity of that particular seat of authority is not brought down too low, but we see a lot of that, and so I'm not entirely surprised.
Not many people like big meetings, but when you do have to go to a meeting and that moderator rarely makes eye contact with you, you're like, I don't want to be here in the first place. You're not going to make occasional eye contact with me as you do to all the other people in there. Why am I even here?
Yeah, I had a vocational mentor that told me once that just so much of an organization of business can rise or fall based on how many meetings you have, how long they are, and how they're conducted. I mean, it really does define a lot of the culture of an organization. It's so important to do them well.
Yeah, I was in a big box store the other day, and I was trying to get somebody's attention saying, where's the water at? The person could not hear me, Andrew, because they had those earbuds in their ear, and they could not even hear a simple, where's the water at?
Now, I'll agree with you 100%. I'll even add the whole thing of people working or being in school and having their phones out and everything. But yeah, when did our society say that, okay, you can be working and also listening and not really paying attention? Like, that is so bizarre to me that we've become okay with that, I guess. And man, is it annoying when you're trying to work with people or having a service done and that person's got headphones in. I'm right behind you on that one. We need to nip that in the bud.
Absolutely. They're trying to work. We're trying to get a service and get out of there. We don't want to spend all night there. All right, there's one thing for an occasional emoji. I get that from your close friends. But when acquaintances start sending you a lot of GIFs and emojis, I'm talking GIFs, that gets very immature, very distracting, and just doesn't come across from an adult that well.
Yeah, I wonder. I think this is going to end up being kind of a generational thing because I'm right kind of on the edge of that becoming popular as I was going high school into college, young adulthood. So I have somewhat of a tolerance for it, but when it's a lot, I do see it as kind of weird and childish and immature. But I kind of have a feeling that when my kids are adults, it's just going to be completely normal.
We're talking about spring ahead here soon, of course, as we're into it right now. But when you're driving on the road at night, it's one thing to have your regular lights on, your low beams, your headlights on occasion. But now these cars are all tricked out, Andrew, with even extreme heavier lights that almost blind you from behind.
Yeah, I've noticed that too. I think the LED technology might have something to do with why it feels a lot brighter than I guess headlights used to. I've noticed that, and I don't know. I mean, I assume that these headlights are going through some sort of safety check and procedure, but yeah, some vehicles, some models, it just seems like the regular lights are almost blinding.
Right. We talked about your restaurant experience, about ordering and stuff, but when you have to constantly ask the wait staff, we mentioned this before, I get it for water. The water, you always need refills, but napkins, forks, you're asking them everything, and it's almost like it's a drudge for them to come by.
Yeah, like I said, my dad was in the restaurant business. In my mind, this is why wait staff works for tips. It's a really important. It's the face of your business. It's the hand and feet of your business if you own a restaurant, and so that's why some people disagree. But my tip is reflective of the service I receive. That's the whole point of it. Is that it keeps wait staff working hard and putting on the right face for the company.
And the attitude too. The attitude will kill a restaurant in a minute. Look how many businesses go out every single day. A few more things. Basketball players and athletes not aware of shot clocks. If you're practicing every day and you're playing in a game, you know how much more time left you have to score a point or a field goal or a basket. Why are you even out there if you just are constantly playing up and down with not being cognizant of the time at all?
Yeah, I mean, maybe there's some element to this that I don't understand, but I played a lot of basketball in middle school and high school, and losing track of the shot clock, I mean, that was something that we kind of rolled our eyes at as high school students. Like, really? You couldn't pay attention to that? So it's surprising that you would see that on a real competitive level.
Two more things. I've never been a big fan of over and the end. You see it on TV shows all the time, but I like TTYL.
TTYL, you're gonna have to explain that one.
Talk to you later.
Oh, talk to you later. Sure, yeah, that works. Absolutely. Let's abbreviate these things. Get in, get out. I like it.
All right, it's springtime, folks. The last thing, we see construction workers, we see maintenance workers around the house, around buildings, and so forth. For those of you carrying ladders, please be careful when you're walking around a corner.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I mean, just any of this stuff. I won't name specifics, but I was just walking out of the house and the neighbors were having some work done and just debris was just falling from the sky. I mean, and almost hit one of the other workers, which is, better than one of the kids walking home from school or a pet or something. But I thought to myself, isn't there a better way to do this? So, yeah, just be careful out there. If that's your line of work, take just the extra step to just keep everybody safe.
That's what teased me off.
Pointing the way in Hampton Roads. W261DI 100.1 FM Norfolk. AM 1010 WPMH Portsmouth. The Lighthouse. Mold. Trash. Rodents. Snakeskin. Even deceased animals. No, this isn't a Halloween shopping list. It's what might be under your house, in your crawl space. Schedule a free crawl space inspection with the Crawl Space Company and find out what's in your crawl space. Call 757-394-3494 to schedule your free inspection or visit thecrawlspacecompany.net. So, do you know what's in your crawl space?
Thank you, too, for your great show because it really makes people think about topics that are important. I listen and I love, and I've called in before, too. I just really appreciate your program. I also think that it's good to have debates because it lets us all dig a little deeper. Hey, what does God's Word say about that? So I appreciate your show. I think it's great, and I think we all should be digging deeper into the Word of God and seeking God as to what He's called us to do.
Be sure to tune into Picking Up the Habit every Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. here on the Lighthouse 100.1 FM.
Mark your calendar for May 28th to May 31st as Saints Constantine and Helen Greek Orthodox Church in Newport News presents the Newport News Greek Festival. Eat, drink, and celebrate authentic Greek culture on the peninsula. Located at 60 Traverse Road, off exit 258B on Route 17 in Newport News. Celebrating a taste of Greece in Newport News. For more, log on to newportnewsgreekfestival.org.
Half of all pregnancies in the U.S. are unplanned, and 43% of those pregnancies end in abortion. CareNet Peninsula is a nonprofit on a mission to bring help and hope in Christ to women facing pregnancy decisions. We're completely community funded. Because of faithful partners, our medical clinic provides free pregnancy tests, ultrasounds, and many other services. This support saves lives of hundreds of preborn babies a year and changes families. Will you help us? Donate or find out more at cnpeninsula.org. That's cnpeninsula.org.
Thank you for listening to Sports Scene today. I want to thank our guests, Rick Kiefner and George McClain. For more, go to gjbtv.com. Click the YouTube link, at Greg Bick on Twitter, at Greg Bick on YouTube. For Andrew, I'm Greg Bicouvaris. We'll talk to you soon.